Hey, my name is John Hogue, and this is the Coldness in Kubrick. The most often stated criticism in acclaimed director Stanley Kubrick's work is that his films create an icy distance between the characters on screen and the audience members watching them. So, what do I mean by coldness? Have you ever seen a movie where you just become so invested in a character that you truly care what happens to them? Well, Kubrick doesn't make these characters. In 2001: A Space Odyssey, the characters are noticeably unemotional, even when it comes to their life being in danger.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
In A Clockwork Orange, Alex DeLarge is an unapologetic sociopath who finds great pleasure in beating up bums and raping women.
Very well.
In The Shining, Jack Torrance is an apathetic father prone to fits of rage and ends up losing his mind and tries to murder his family.
Here's Johnny.
Are you starting to see the pattern? None of these characters are relatable. It's very hard to identify with these characters. After watching 2001, Ray Bradbury said that the audience doesn't care when Dr. Frank Poole dies, and I agree with him. But emotional investment in the characters is not what Kubrick was after. By depicting these cold characters on screen, Kubrick became inherently capable of depicting problems outside these characters, the problems we should truly be focusing on. A Clockwork Orange shows Alex belittle, hurt, and even kill harmless people. By establishing this distaste towards Alex, we then feel conflicted by the amount of pain and angst that's thrusted upon him in the second half of the film. He is put through the Ludovico technique, where he experiences a feeling comparable to Death's cousin, while he watches brutal beatings and rapes on a movie screen. There is then an almost religious onslaught of misery that follows. Alex is kicked out of his house, beaten up by the bum he hurt earlier, beaten up by his droogs who are now police officers, and forced to try and kill himself by the husband of a woman he raped. Seems like an eye for an eye, right? But the overarching message is how society is able to inflict a worse evil on someone who is evil, by taking away moral choice. For Alex's sake, it may be for the better, but to what extent will society go to implement these limitations? Now, let's take a look at The Shining. Author Stephen King hated this adaptation of the book, saying it was very cold, we're looking at these people, but they're like ants in an anthill, further emphasizing the detachment between audience and characters. From the beginning, we see Jack as an emotionally distant husband and father. He does not pay close attention to his family. This is used in chilling contrast to the emotionally explosive scenes involving Jack, whether he's hacking at a door in the Here's Johnny scene, or walking menacingly towards his wife Wendy, and he says something like,
Said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in. I'm gonna bash them right the fuck in.
What Kubrick is doing with this film is taking an unwavering look into alcoholism. It's understandable that Stephen King hates this film, because even though the book and the film deal with the destructiveness of alcohol, King made the book as an autobiography of sorts, being a recovering alcoholic himself, and therefore wanted people to empathize with Jack Torrance. Kubrick clearly doesn't allow the audience to empathize with Jack. Even though Jack has stopped drinking alcohol for 5 months, Kubrick turned him into a dry drunk, someone who has stopped drinking without changing the dysfunctional thinking and behavior of an alcoholic. Where the novel succeeds in having a more human core, where Jack gets better and his family lives happily ever after, Kubrick succeeds by depicting the coldness in Jack and alcoholism, by showing the darkest side of a person's inner demons, the inevitable loss of hope, love, and family when one cannot conquer these demons. 2001: A Space Odyssey is an intriguing movie that uses a different kind of coldness than we saw with Alex DeLarge and Jack Torrance. If you've ever seen a Kubrick movie, you'll know that his pacing is slow, but for 2001, it is excruciatingly slow. Kubrick uses scenes that tend to meander, scenes lasting longer than we're accustomed to. Instead of having fast-paced sequences with triumphant music, Kubrick slows the spectacle down in order to let the audience observe the images and contemplate their meaning. I mean, look at how long this landing sequence is taking. It's not even halfway over. The large scope and length of the scenes and images displayed are meant to show humans how small we truly are. When looked upon from a cosmic standpoint, it's easy to understand how insignificant we are in the grand scheme of things. Maybe the characters on board the spaceship are cold and distant because they realize this. Dr. Dave Bowman and Dr. Frank Poole show little to no emotion throughout the entirety of the film, not even when they're discussing what to do about a serious problem on board the spaceship, and not when Poole gets a birthday transmission from his parents. So why the coldness in these characters? For one thing, it enhances the extremity of the scenes where Dr. Poole dies and when Dr. Bowman goes through a famous Stargate sequence. Roger Ebert said, "The genius is not in how much Stanley Kubrick does in 2001: A Space Odyssey, but in how little." This is immensely true. By doing so little, Kubrick is able to make a grand societal indictment. The HAL 9000 is a supercomputer on board the spaceship and displays the most genuine emotions, more so than Poole and Bowman, emphasized greatly when Bowman disconnects HAL.
I'm afraid. I'm afraid, Dave.
Can't technology surpass our own understanding of it? How far can we progress as a species? Where do we go next? These are the questions Kubrick wants us to ask. By the display of icy distance in 2001, Kubrick reveals a whole new side to humanity. 2001: A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange, and The Shining all showcase unique kinds of coldness in Kubrick films. As I've said, coldness is a crucial part of his films, as when we empathize with characters, our innate sympathy towards them clouds our understanding of the true problems and overall meaning of a film. By implementing these ideas, Kubrick combines realism and fantasy, the sublime and the grotesque, progressing the art film further than anyone could have possibly imagined.